everything that we have to do, we can accomplish through natural attrition, which means we don't anticipate any losses in positions, but we're not counting it out. If we have to, we have to. And so we'll see how that dictates. What the board decides tonight will give us some very clear direction, and we'll be back in 2 weeks to give a final adoption to the budget. But I also, I really want to, I've also now started meeting with some community leaders and elected officials, and those meetings are going well for the most part. People are very proud of this community. I've met with the organization leaders, and people have opinions. And I tell superintendents all the time, we deal with people's two most prized possessions, their money and their kids. So they're going to have an opinion. So you have to listen to them. And eventually you have to make the decision that's in the best interest of everybody. I am very, though, before I turn it over to the others, see if they have any additional comments before we take your questions. I'm also very proud of the academic success. We've seen some preliminary results, and the district is doing very well academically, and that is the main thing. So the main thing is the main thing, and we're keeping it the main thing, but we have to fix these other issues in order for us to be able to, because if we don't make smart decisions starting now, we're going to have to make some real big, tough decisions in the near future. So with that being said, Mr. Kim, you want anything to add to that?
I just want to echo Dr. Hinos' comments about the staff and the board of trustees. At our last special call board meeting, it was a great opportunity to see both of the staff and the board come together and really work together to go through an exercise to understand how the budget works in the global scale. I think there is always a fallacy that in some sense everybody understands school finance, but school finance is a very complex system here in the state of Texas. So for the board and the staff to actually engage in that discussion and come to some conclusions, understandings, is a very powerful moment of that. Certainly going forward, as Dr. Hinosa mentioned, we do anticipate some quick decisions that we have to make because of deadlines from a legal sense of adopting the budget. And after that, we'll get into deeper discussions really in the next 6 months, next school year, that affects the following school year when it comes to programs, whether it be academic programs, whether it be programs related to special education, whether certainly finance and hiring practices that we need to look at. But certainly those things are important for us going forward to make sure. But I do want to make sure the one last thing to be said, things are not necessarily broken. They just need to be coordinated in a better way. And if there are opportunities for us to do that, we will do so. But in many ways, there are some great things that are happening here. It's just a matter of how can we refresh some of those ideas and thoughts. So with that, let me just turn it over to Mr. Vasquez.
Well, good afternoon. I just want to echo what they're saying, and I'm just really proud of our staff, both at the campus levels and the district levels, for everything they're doing for the good of the district. Everybody understands the situation we're in, and everybody's doing their part to pitch in and help the district. And I'm very appreciative of Dr. Hinojosa and Mr. Kim for their efforts. They're talking to us a lot about fiscal discipline, systems, and putting things in place for the good of the district. What I really appreciate is that they've been able to, they allow us to be who we are. We're a good district, and they're allowing us to remain who we are, but giving us some opportunities to grow and to become better as a district. So I do appreciate their support throughout this this time.
All right, well, we'll take any questions that you may have at this point.
Okay, my name's Ariana. I'm from KFOX 14 and CBS 4. Can you talk a little bit about why these benefits and salary changes are so needed, considering 89% of the budget does go towards that? Yeah,
because you know, we can cut all the rubber bands and all the paper clips and all the catering, and it's not going to help. It's going to help a little, and certainly we need to be wise in those areas. But a significant amount of the dollars, the variance is significant for most other districts that we've been associated with. It's usually about 80%, and 89% is a significantly higher number. And then you add utilities. Utilities is probably another 4 to 5%. So there's very little. You can't cut utilities. It's 104 degrees in El Paso today. So you have to do this, and so that's really where the money is. But the good news is that we don't have to do it all at once. But if we don't start now, we're going to make the problem worse. And so I think the board understands that, the senior staff understands that, and both of these gentlemen work with the principals to make sure they understand that this is just a necessary part of what has to be done.
And then next year, it's projected that the district will be in a $41 million deficit on top of the $33 million. How, I guess, is this change happening at the budget meeting in just a bit? How is that going to chip away at that number?
Yeah, there's some fallacies, and I want Mr. Kim to help us understand that. There's some fallacies because there is a budget that's adopted. That's the adopted budget. But then there's the actual budget. You don't spend every dollar that you have typically because you don't fill all positions all year. So there's a lot of narratives about what is the number, and that's one of the things that's been frustrating for us is we need to get to that actual number. Now we can impact the future by some of these decisions that we're going to make. So we feel confident that the number's not going to be that big. This probably will still be a deficit budget because we don't want to create pain to get it all in 1 year. Mr. Kim, you want to elaborate on that?
Dr. Hinos is perfectly correct. When boards adopt a budget, for example, this coming June 19, the board will adopt an adopted budget. I mean, this is our threshold that we'll be spending. In some cases, though, always a district, being very pro-teacher, pro-students, adopt a budget that accounts for everything. But in reality, we may not be actually using all those dollars. So the actual closeout budget is actually a lot less than that. So what's been reported, certainly out there in various circles here and there, certainly that needs to be corrected or certainly informed to the public about what that is. And I think we can do that here shortly. What we want to do from now on going forward is create a process where the actual adopted budget is in close alignment with what the actual budget it is. And that's something that once again comes down to discipline issues. The best analogy, I guess, in some sense, is that we may go ahead in our household decide to put some dollars towards a future vacation, but we may not actually go to that vacation. So in reality, I may have a deficit budget in many ways, but we never spent that money. So it's one of those things that we got to be thoughtful about those in terms of where it goes.
And your general citizen may not understand that, and that's why we have to do a better job of messaging so that people do understand that the variance is not going to be as bad as it sounded, but it certainly is an issue to be concerned about and to exert some discipline at this point. Other questions?
As conservators, you guys were brought in to lower this multi-million-dollar deficit, but also to work on a multitude of other issues within the district. Can you talk to us a little bit about, I know in the budget meeting we'll hear more so about how we're chipping away at that deficit. How are we chipping away at these other issues in the district?
We're having auxiliary meetings, and Mr. Kim in particular. We've got lining up some issues for the board governance issues to be handled in August. There are a lot of systems in the district that need to be reviewed. And for example, how you keep up with everything. And so there are some things that Mr. Kim's working on that we have to make some adjustments. But we don't have to make those adjustments right now. And there are some that we may need to make a decision on about who is our provider. But really those come after this adoption of the budget. We needed to be singularly focused on this to get this done and get it right. Because if we mess this up, we lose another year. We can fix those other things as we go. And a lot of things have already been fixed, like the graduation issue we think is pretty well resolved. We trust, but we got to verify. And so that's what our job is on that one. But they've shown us a lot of details that gives us some confidence that they're headed in the right direction. We will verify that next, but we got to get this budget behind us. Anything else on the other systems you want to add?
Certainly, we need to conduct a needs assessment that's in progress at this particular point. And there are multiple different areas, governance, operations, academics, communications, and so forth, that we'll be looking to. Certainly, that is not to say that there is issues in those areas. But we want to look at all those areas to make sure. Once that gets done, then we will start addressing those things in areas where we can do the very best, and certainly rely on the district to actually look at what our best practices there are as well too. And that will be demonstrated to the board, to the public, and so forth. But once again, that's a lengthier process. And as Dr. Hinosa mentioned, there's an urgent need right now, which is the budget adoption because of the timeline issue. And
we'll report those to you as we have regular briefings. I know people are out for the summer now, and in July you typically have less meetings because families and staff take vacations, but we'll be here for the board meeting in 2 weeks, and we'll be back in July for the board meeting. But a lot of other earnest work is, if we want to go actually see things on campuses, we'd rather see those when students are here, where you can see the full exchange. And we can get to those with a high degree of confidence, but this had to be priority one.
And then as far as, we're going into this budget meeting right now, so I know you can't answer a ton of questions, but teachers already feel like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. How do you go about telling them, that these raises are no longer going to happen and that their benefits could possibly change? How do you go about telling these people, and how do you keep them here at SISD?
Well, nobody's happy about that, but we did meet with all the major organizations, and they're not happy about it, but they do understand that we got to keep this quality district together. And we have a number of options for the board to consider. If we kick the can, then the considerations next year are going to be much bigger. So the board has a tough decision on two big recommendations. The staff's going to make a recommendation. We hope the board adopts it. If we don't, then we're going to have to get tougher next year. If they do adopt it, we're going to be on our way to progress. Socorro ISD is going to be able to keep their teachers because the culture and the climate is coming back. People feel calm. There's a sense of calm that I've seen over the last few weeks. And another thing that needs to be stated is that the district asked for this intervention. It was not, typically things have to be a lot worse for a conservator to take over. But the district wants to get better. They know they need some outside help. They know they're a good district, but they got to figure out how to solve these other issues so they can maintain that reputation. There will be some natural attrition. You'll lose some people. Hopefully we don't lose too many of them. The district doesn't lose them, but it is a legitimate question, and it is something to be concerned about. But we have many other legitimate questions we have to face. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll see you later.
You all.